Hi everybody, this is Gina Bibliomation and I am the Evergreen Systems Specialist. I'm going to show you how to create a profile for Evergreen use in Firefox. So if you've watched our Google Chrome video and you're curious to know how Firefox works, we don't really have many libraries using Firefox as preferred to Chrome. This is a great way to see what other options there are for you. One thing that I do have to mention about Firefox though is it's not as user-friendly as a setup for Google Chrome. But if you do some preliminary optimizations and customizations to it, it's definitely just as good of a browser to use if you want to try to use Firefox. We'll go over that in a moment, but for now, we're just also going to go over the same prerequisite information I had in the Chrome video, and that's why we prefer that staff would have a separate profile for just Evergreen use. So the reason why this might be very helpful is because it could prevent some login issues. Now, this has been mostly reported with Chrome. Again, this might be because the majority of our libraries use Chrome, but we do notice that if browsers have any type of ties to an account, like a Google account, if you have that information already saved in there as a profile, sometimes logging into Evergreen, especially if you have multiple staff members using the same machine, could cause some issues. So just having one profile for Evergreen use for anyone to use on staff prevents that problem. It's also easier to access the ILS because you're only using one workstation. So you could definitely have multiple staff members use one workstation. We actually prefer that. And that way, you're not having the need to register workstations with different profiles all the time. So please just use the one profile per machine for Evergreen use. You can have multiple staff members using it. Now, the only exception to this one particular rule of having the one workstation is if you're someone in tech services. So if you do a lot of cataloging, you have those holding templates, or if you do acquisitions and you just have a workstation configured to those preferences, that's completely understandable why you would probably want to have a separate workstation. So in any case, the main majority use of Evergreen just requires one, so you don't need to register more. And you could also set up a separate Firefox profile for email and internet browsing. We could definitely go over that as well. All right, so this first step in getting the profile ready, again, does require a little bit of technical skill, but we'll do the best to go over this. I'm also going to be referring to our doc for just this one section, but I'll go ahead and put the link in the description as well so you have it. So when you get Firefox ready, especially if you haven't used Firefox on your machine before, you could press either the Windows and R keys to get run to show up, or you could actually just type in run, and that could come up this way as well. Now, if you're going to configure this like I am, we're actually only going to need to do this only one time. So you don't have to do this every single time that you want to set up Firefox. But in any case, I will have this command also in the description so you can copy and paste. It's Firefox Profile Manager No Remote. You click on OK, and then we get a Choose User Profile. So I'm going to create one. Going to click on Next, and I'm going to type in Evergreen. Click on Next, and you'll see it come up on this list. So to make this so that you don't have to go ahead and put that run command in every time, when you set this up for the first time, this will actually be checked off to true as a default, and that's use a selected profile without asking on startup. We're actually going to uncheck this so that every time you access Firefox, it's going to ask you for that profile. And if you do want to set up a different profile or use any of these preloaded ones as something for internet use, like browsing and email outside of Evergreen, you could go ahead and toggle in between those without having to, again, put this whole command into run and doing that. So we're going to, again, uncheck that and then click Start Firefox. I'm going to skip this step for everything, but, do it as you would like to. It's just not needed for the setup. And we're going to go to this 3-line vertically stacked icon on the upper right-hand corner. click on settings and do a few things in here. So the first thing I'm going to look up is pop. There's a couple of different options that you can do for this. I actually recommend just unchecking this entirely, but you could, if you want to, click on exceptions and then write in biblio.org as the web address so that any pop-ups and redirects when using Evergreen will be allowed. But if you're only using this profile correctly for Evergreen use, you could just uncheck that entirely. And again, you want this to be disabled because certain actions in Evergreen will have some redirects to different tabs. And if you have this checked off, it will prevent that. I'm going to type homepage and next. So homepage and new windows. I'm going to click on custom URLs. This link will be provided in the description for you to copy and paste, but it's just the login for Evergreen. So I pressed enter after all that, and that's going to kick off the homepage to the Evergreen login. I'm going to type in autofill next. So we definitely don't want any of our logins and passwords saved whenever we put them into the websites. It will ask you, but I think it's just better to uncheck this entirely so you don't get the temptation of accidentally clicking yes. And we're also going to uncheck autofill addresses and credit cards. This is because sometimes, depending on what kind of scanner you use, if autofill is allowed on and you're scanning in a barcode, the system might be looking at whatever has been preloaded on there from previous scans, and then you could get some missed scans. So this prevents that from happening. All right, and so the next portion of this, I'm actually going to click in this like little empty area, right click, and it's going to say bookmarks toolbar. I'm just going to have that to always show. So if you want to put bookmarks as needed with the star button here, when you access Evergreen, you could go ahead and do that. You could also right click on these and remove anything. This is always going to be here, and that's purely if you are interested in importing bookmarks from other browsers. If you have them saved to other browsers, but with Evergreen use, you don't need to do this. However, if you want to get a separate personal profile for internet browsing on here, you might want to consider that. All right, I'm going to close that down. I'm going to open up Firefox. It's going to ask me for a profile. I'm going to click on it and then start Firefox. I don't use this as a primary browser, but if you do, go ahead. You can click Make Primary Browser, and you see that it actually accesses Evergreen, the login page for the homepage. So you would go ahead and log in. In this version of it, I don't have a workstation registered, but after I do my login, I'll go ahead and ask somebody on staff who has those permissions to make the workstation to register it here. But once you go ahead and have that workstation saved to the browser, you don't need to get that re-registered again. So that's getting that set up on Firefox. Again, if you are interested in setting up a different profile for personal use, you would pretty much go through the same procedure. If you want to use the default one, you can. You could create a separate profile just for your own usage, but please use Evergreen separately from the other profiles. All right, so I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions about this, please contact our help desk, especially if you're someone who's going to be migrating any information over to a new computer and you're setting up a new computer for Evergreen use. So if you have something like a holdings template that you need transferred over to that computer, or if you have receipt templates that are customized to your library, you could definitely reach out to help desk and we could help you with that as well.